Welcome back to another episode of A Gardener's Journey Homestead. I'm sitting down, which you never hardly see me sitting down, but I'm at my kitchen table. And look what we have to tackle today. You can see how big the basket is. All of that is purple hull peas. Lot to do. But I figured I have like my discard bag to put the things in, and I have my bowl to put the peas in. So I figured I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone because I don't sit down much, as you probably can tell. But I thought while I was sitting here shelling peas that I would do a 2-for-1. So I told you guys I wanted to do like a summer, an end of the summer recap. So I have my notes that I took here. This is for my own benefit. But I wanted to share with you guys my end of the summer recap. So this is me just thinking back, and I didn't do this last summer, and I wish I would have for a couple of reasons. So I wanted to kind of reflect on how the summer went, what went well and what didn't go well for a couple of reasons. One, so that I can make adjustments for next time. And I wanted to do it while it was fresh in mind, you know, because we're still kind of wrapping up the season. If I were to wait until next year, you know, March, when I'm planning for the summer garden, some things I'm just not going to remember. I'm just not. So I wanted to do it while it was fresh in my mind. And one thing that I've been really trying to do really a lot this garden season is to take notes as I go along. I got that tip from another YouTuber, and it helps and it makes sense because I have a lot going on, like I'm sure most of you do. And I had a really great memory, real great, before kids. And it's something that happened to my brain cells after I had kids. I just cannot remember things. If I don't write it down, it just doesn't happen. And me trying to remember what went really well 6 or 7 months from now, I'll get some of the basics, but I'm just not going to remember. So I'm doing it now to write it down. And now I'll have a repository. I'll have the paper as well as I'll have this video that I can go back and say, okay, what did I say I was going to do? But the fact that I wrote it down or typed it up on the computer, and y'all, it took me 10 minutes or less. Some of these notes I had in my phone, but I really just kind of was going around visually in my mind, all the gardening spaces I have and what I had in that bed or what I have in the bed still. And thought about what went well. So I have 2 columns. I have what went well and what do I want to do differently the next time. I encourage you to do this, right? It didn't have to be fancy. It didn't have to be all typed up. You can put notes in your phone, but I do encourage you to write it down somewhere. I don't want you to keep it just in your head. I don't want you to just think about it. I want you to write it down, notes in your phone. If you have a garden journal, a garden planner, but think through what went well this gardening season and what things do you want to do differently. If you've been following me for a while, then you know I did a whole 3-part planning series in December and January where I was planning for the summer garden. And I thought I did okay, you know, patting myself on the back. But there's plenty of things that I did not think through well enough. And that's okay. Why? Because it's a journey. So I wanted to kind of share with you some of the highlights of my, that one's bad, of my end of the summer garden recap. And let's just talk about it together. And this will help me as I begin to plan for next summer. Not that I'm planning for that now, I'm planning for the fall. But this, as we're shutting down one season, going into another one. So let's start with what went well. So the first thing I have on my list is starting my own seeds. That was a victory, if I must say so myself. Remember, and again, if you're new to me, thank you so much for being here. I am a new gardener, and this was the first time that I successfully started my own seeds, not planted seeds, started my own seeds. I started seeds 2 years ago when I first started gardening. It was a disaster. Nothing came up. I had nothing to put out in the ground. They were leggy. They were dead. Nothing happened. Well, fast forward 2 years. I did a lot of research, watched a lot of people, and by God's grace, I feel like I can confidently say I know how to start seeds. I did it successfully for my summer garden. I would say 80% of my garden were from seeds that I started myself. I'm excited about that, y'all. One, that saved a ton of money because my gardening space, it would almost double this summer with me doing the in-ground garden. It almost doubled. So I can't imagine having to buy all of those things as starts. So at least 80% of my garden, and probably was 90%, if I think about it, was from seeds that I started. And so that's a huge victory. Now, it doesn't it doesn't take away the fact that you still go in a nursery and a Home Depot and you just want to buy some seeds or some plant starts just because it's what you're used to doing, or just because, man, they just look good. And I had to constantly tell myself, you don't need that. Like, you don't need that. You already have that. Now, did I buy some transplants? Absolutely, I did. But 10% versus 100%. So starting my own seeds was definitely a victory. I will definitely be doing that going forward. And as you guys know, I've already started my seeds for the fall and they are doing well. So I have learned how to start seeds. That's a game changer. If you have not learned how to start your own seeds, then definitely go back and watch some of my earlier videos where I was going through the process. And maybe in the spring, I'll do maybe a whole series about starting seeds and walk down specifically what I've learned and what I've done, because that's a game changer. That is a game changer. So the next thing on my list that went well was pruning my tomatoes. Again, this was the best tomato year that I have had year to date, that I actually have tomatoes that we had plenty for fresh eating, plenty that I've given away, and I have probably right now 8 gallon size bags in the freezer. Now, that's not a ton to do all the things that I want to do with, but compared to last year, I had like 3 gallon bags in the freezer, and I didn't give any tomatoes away. So we did have some for fresh eating last year, and I had 3 bags to put in the freezer. I didn't give anything away. So I definitely had more production, for sure. I planted more, obviously. And the tomatoes overall did well. Now, when we talk about things that I should have done differently, there's plenty of things on my tomatoes I should have done differently. But I do think that the pruning helped a ton. And I didn't do pruning last year. So to me, that was a win in my book. Next thing on the list that went well, my jalapeno peppers, my bell peppers, habaneros, and the cucumbers outside of my house in the raised bed. All of those were rock stars this summer. I had more than cucumbers. I was getting on average 15 a day. You can't eat that many cucumbers. I've done pickle relish. I've done pickles. I have given so many cucumbers away. I've had cucumber water. We've eaten them fresh. So it has been a banner year for cucumbers. That worked really, really, really well. And jalapeno peppers, I've had thousands. They're still coming. I probably picked half a basket this size yesterday. First week of September. Gone well. Habaneros was my first time doing habaneros. I had 2 habanero plants, and they about put me out of business. Like, they are producing so well. And that was an experiment because I eat them. I mean, I put them in stuff, but not like that. But I do have some plans for some of my habaneros that I'm excited about to make some stuff with. So all of that went really, really well. My red onions was a success. I got those from Dixondale Farms. Did a whole bed, and they all were nice, big, beautiful, great success with that. I also had better success with my corn. I did corn 2 years ago, and all of it was eaten up. Most of it was eaten up by worms or got too hard. None of it was edible. Well, this year I had more than enough corn. It was edible, and it was really me. I just wasn't able to keep up with it. So the ones that were not edible and was hard, it wasn't because the corn was bad. It's because I didn't get to it in time. But I had plenty full ears of corn without question. So that went really well. What did I do different on the corn? I fertilized more than I did before. So I fertilized before it went in the ground, and I did the side dressing of the extra nitrogen. And that seemed to work really, really, really well. I really upped my fertilizing game this year. If you see my high tunnel like where I stash all my fertilizer. I got tons of stuff. I bought more and used more, and was more intentional about fertilization than I was last summer or than I've ever been. Because again, as you learn more, you know more and you do more. So that worked out well. And I'm looking at my list. The other thing that worked out well was the spacing in my outside garden. So if you are new, if you go back and see videos of my outside garden, this is the first year that we had an outside garden. And we spaced the rows 3 feet apart. And when we first started getting the ground ready, 3 feet sounded and looked like a lot of space, like we were wasting space. That turned out to be a great decision. I could really even use 4 feet wherever the tomatoes are. So whatever's on either side of the tomatoes, I think should be 4 feet, just because they get so big, wild, things like that. And it's kind of hard to keep up with. But the 3 feet worked fantastic. There were plenty of people saying, oh man, that's a lot of space. You're losing valuable real estate and garden space. You could plant more stuff. But I was able to walk, bend, get down, and not break my back. Okay, and I didn't have to like do the side shuffle, only by the tomatoes once they got really mature. So that worked out really well. We'll definitely do that again. Flowers went really well. This is my first time doing flowers this year, growing cut flowers, because I wanted to have cut flowers in my house. And I actually have an arrangement. I'll show you guys, hopefully, at the end of this video. I have an arrangement over there for my cut flowers. And then I've done some videos. I think I've done 1 or 2 videos where I showed me getting cut flowers out of the garden. That went really well. The varieties that I liked the most were the zinnias, the celosia, and black-eyed Susan. And then there was a marigold that I tried this year that was, I think it's called White Kilimanjaro. That was beautiful. So that went really well. And then the last thing that I kind of captured was the purple hull peas. My first time growing them. Had a lot of first times, and I'm excited about that, because as a gardener, especially when you're new, just try, experiment, try one plant, see if you like it. If you don't like it and you never grew up eating it, try it, grow it, see if you like it. It's only going to cost you a pack of seeds or a transplant, $3 or $4. So that's the beauty of growing your own food. You get to try things. So I knew I liked purple whole peas. So it wasn't an experiment in taste. It was an experiment if I could grow it. And boy, did we grow it. They have been so prolific. Look, y'all, this is all purple whole peas. Unreal. And I just picked these a couple of days ago. So again, we're in the first week, almost technically the second week of September. They still going, and they're in the outside garden. So those were my top things that came to mind. And again, y'all, I did this really quick, like in 10 minutes. That came to mind about what went really well. And I think it's important, again, I'm going to encourage you to do this, because I think sometimes as a gardener, we think about all the things that go wrong or what we didn't get done. But you need to also be mindful of the things that went well, the things that you grew that were like standout. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. And you know what to do more of next time or less. Okay, so yay for me on the stuff that went well. I'm gonna pat my own self on the back. Now, let's talk about the things that I want to do differently next time. The things that didn't go quite so well. Okay, and I got a whole list of those. Number 1, strawberries in the ground. This was my first time doing my own strawberries. So last year I bought some strawberry starts, and I bought them too late in the season. So and I think I've said this before, just because you see it in Home Depot in August doesn't mean that's the plant for August. So when I bought them, it might have been May or something. It was already too late for strawberries. So by the time they tried to develop something, it was too hot. They died. Moving on. So this year, I bought some strawberry bare root plants from Stark Brothers Nursery, put them in the ground. I did a video. I took you guys with me. We planted those together, and they grew but the strawberries had tons and tons and tons of slugs and just were dead. They were not edible. Being on the ground just did not work. So much to the point that I don't know that I'm going to try it again. I think I'll just buy my strawberries from a local farmer. I'm not going to say I'm not going to do it, but it's not high on my list. And that's okay. So again, that's another thing. You don't have to grow everything that you eat. You can. And I would love to attempt to, and I'm trying to grow the majority of what my family eats. But there's some things I'm just going to have to bow out on. You know, either I don't have that hand, I don't have the space, I don't have the patience, or something else is more important. And I think strawberries is on the list for me that I may just get those from a local farmer. Now, when February rolls back around again next year, I may sing a different tune. But for right now, I'm kind of meh on growing strawberries myself in my own raised bed. Another thing that I thought I could have done well or differently was just more succession planting. I did do some succession planting, but it wasn't as thoughtful as I needed it to be. And when I did my garden plan back in January and December, I didn't plan to succession plant, if that makes sense. Because I could have thought about, okay, this is going to be in this bed for this amount of time, and then I'm going to plant another row in this bed, or this, kind of just gauging what's going to come out of the garden, what's going in. I could have done a better job at that. Also, knowing ahead of time that I'm going to plant 2 to 3 successions of squash. I've done squash successfully for the last 3 growing seasons, and successfully meaning I've had a good crop. But consistently, the squash bugs are going to come in my area. I'm in zone 7A in Tennessee. The squash bugs are going to come in my area, and they're going to take over. So I'm going to get a good crop for like the first 30 days, and then after that, it's going to be trash. I've done it 3 times, and it's been consistent. So now that I know that, I just need to plan for it. Either don't grow squash, but I'm going to grow squash because it's too easy not to grow, in my opinion. But I know that, and so now I just need to plan. If one crop doesn't get me the squash that I need, just automatically plan to have 2 successions of squash. Squash grows easy. It grows fast. So no problems. In 50 days, you can have more squash. So just know that on the front end. The other thing I should have done differently is I planted way too many shishito peppers. Shishito peppers was a new thing for me. I had never tasted them, never grew them. And I don't know what possessed me to start that many seeds and grow like, I don't know, I probably had at least 8 shishito pepper plants. Why? It was too many. It's too many. And it's so funny. I hate to say this, y'all, I still haven't tasted the shishito peppers. I just haven't had time. Now, because everybody says the best way to eat the shishito peppers is to blister them in a cast iron skillet with some butter and make this garlic aioli sauce. It sounds great. I just haven't had a chance to do it. So on the shishito peppers, I'm going to cut them up and dice them and freeze them. All the ones that I have in excess. But I can tell you, I won't be growing that in abundance next year. 1 or 2 plants is plenty. I don't need 7 or 8 for a pepper that I haven't tasted. And every time I look up a recipe, that's all it says is to blister them. I'm going to need more than one way to make those shishitos. 8 plants was too many. I planted also too many sun gold tomato plants. I love sun golds. They are great, but I went overboard. My friend gave me some last season. I had never heard of them, and they were so good. And so I was like, oh, I'm growing that. And so I planted probably 15 plants. Again, overzealous, not thinking, don't need that many, right? So if I planted 15, I probably can go with half of that and be okay. And on the tomatoes, another thing that I want to do differently next time is I need to plant more paste tomatoes, less cherry and slicing. And maybe not less slicing. I think that from a slicing perspective, I probably could do a couple of more. but definitely on the cherry tomatoes, because really the cherry tomatoes, we use a lot for fresh eating in salads and stuff like that. But it's not ideal for making sauce, ketchup, pizza sauce, marinara sauce, spaghetti sauce. I really need the paste tomatoes. I mean, the paste tomatoes are more ideal for that because they have less juice. And to me, I didn't do enough paste tomatoes. So I need to work on my ratios of paste tomatoes versus slicing tomatoes versus cherry tomatoes. What else? Garlic. I don't have enough garlic to last me the whole year. So I'm contemplating when I do my garlic this fall is to plant 2 beds of garlic. Now, I could put it in the outside garden, but I feel like I don't have enough space to take up a whole row. And especially because the garlic will be in there till like June, almost July. But if I sit down and plant it, I might could work that out because that might be even better. Because I could just take 1 row, which is 100 feet, and do my garlic. And that might be equivalent to like 2 beds. I need to work out the calculations and the math on that. And again, if I'm doing succession planting better or differently than when the garlic comes out, then I could put something else in that I was going to grow anyway. And instead of me growing it at the beginning of the season, like in May, I can wait till July. That might be an option. And green beans might be a great follower of garlic. So we'll see. The other thing is I need more Yukon Gold potatoes. So you guys know what happened with my Yukon Gold potatoes, the bed. I got potatoes, but they were really, really small, and I didn't get nearly enough. I had enough for like 2 recipes, and that was it. Okay, I had to get a napkin because it got slimy. Definitely need to plant more Yukon Gold potatoes, and I want to, instead of doing it in a raised bed, I want to do it outside in the garden and in a long row instead of the raised bed so that I have more space. The next thing doing differently was to plant more yellow onions, do my yellow onions outside and not in the high tunnel. So remember, my red onions did great. My yellow onions did not. My yellow onions were in the high tunnel. My red onions were outside. So I think I need to plant them outside. And of course, I use way more yellow onions than I do red onions. So I've had to buy yellow onions from Azure Standard to kind of supplement. What else? On the green beans, I tried the Provider green beans. I don't like them. I'm going to stick to what I like, which is the Blue Lake. That has been successful for me. To me, they last longer on the vine. The Provider beans went bad really, really quick, whereas the Blue Lake does not. So, what else? I definitely need more space for watermelon and cantaloupe. If you remember, that was on one side of the tomatoes. And when I planted it, I knew that I probably did not have enough space, but that was all the space that I had ready to plant. So I took a risk anyway. Now, we still had lots of watermelon. And I only planted sugar baby watermelon. So I didn't plant the real big ones. And I don't think I will plant the big ones because we don't eat that much. The sugar baby is a nice size for us. I got a lot of those. As the season kept growing, though, the size got smaller and smaller and smaller. There just was not enough space for them to grow effectively. So great on the watermelons, but I need to definitely dedicate their own space. That and the cantaloupe. I didn't get any cantaloupe, and that was just from a spacing perspective. It was so close to where the water was and so close to the edge of the garden that a lot of my stuff accidentally on the cantaloupe side got mowed down. So that was a mistake. That's the only reason they didn't grow. And then the last thing, I'll stop here. I got more on the paper, but I don't want to make this too long. The last thing I'll say was the okra. The okra ran away from us, okay? And it's still running. The okra is still going, and you literally have to pick it every single day. Y'all already know. Time was the issue. Time was the issue. So will I plant okra again? Yes. I need to figure out a better system. And again, I think if I do more succession planting and not planting my whole garden at the same time, that's going to help me because the harvest is going to come in later. Literally at one point in the summer, it was just everything was in harvest at the same time. And it was literally too much to keep up with, especially when you're not doing it on a full-time basis. I'll probably plant less okra next year is what I think I'll do, and come up with a way where we can keep up with it a little bit better. Then I had heard there was I've been growing the Clemson spineless, but I've heard there's a brand or a kind of okra where it can get a little bit longer and bigger on the pod before it gets woody. So I need to look that up and see how that may work. We'll see. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I wanted to mention? Those are the highlights of what I could have done differently. Y'all, it's been a fun summer growing season. It's been busy. It's been challenging to keep up with, but it has been rewarding. I look at my counters. You can't see it, but in front of me, my counters are covered with food. And before I even move my lips to complain, I just tell the Lord, thank you, because there are some people who don't have food to eat. There's some people who are not able or who are not growing their own food, or they don't have the space that I have. I think that everybody can grow food in some way, some form, even if it's, in a container, on your windowsill, maybe a herb or something like that. But even though it can get overwhelming, let's be grateful that we have the ability, we have the skills, we have our hands, we have the activities of our limbs, we have a good mind to even want to grow our own food. And if you are blessed to be able to have food that is more than what your family needs, then definitely find a way to share it in your community with your friends and with your family. And if you can't share food, share a pack of seeds. Seeds are food. When you give somebody a pack of seeds, you're giving them the ability to grow their own food, which is priceless. And as you know, with all of the rising prices in the grocery store or the shortages, coupled with that, giving somebody a way to eat is pretty special these days, especially in 2022. Thank you for going on a little journey down memory lane. This was good for my soul. I think it's good to always reflect, whether it's you feel like the experience was good or bad. That is how you learn. We are not perfect. Our gardens are not perfect. We are trying each and every day to do the best that we can with what we have. And being a good steward of that is going back to reflect, what went well? What could I have done differently? What will I do differently the next time? And then sharing that with somebody else. So that when somebody says, hey, have you grown such and such? Yes, I have. Here was my experience. And your experience may be different because you're in a different climate, you're in a different zone, or just because your hands are different. Your soil is different. That is how we all learn and grow. I encourage you to reflect on your summer garden. If you are willing to do that, I want you to put a yes down in the comments below. This is a challenge. I want you to do it. Not for me, but for you. Because I think you'll be surprised at how many successes you've really had. And I think it will help you plan whether you're going to plan for the fall or we're going to plan for next spring or next summer. And if you do it now, it'll be much, much better than waiting 6 or 7 months and trying to go back and remember, what was that? What did I have in that bed? And the last thing I'll leave you with is make sure that you're taking notes. A lot of us probably have our phone in the garden. I take notes on my phone. I don't even have a special app. I just have a notes section in my phone and I'm taking notes as I go, on little things that pop up so I can kind of go back and remember. Do that. Keep a record of what is going well. So if you're going to commit to reflecting on your garden journey, I want you to put yes in the comments. I would love to hear how it went, what you come up with. But thank you guys for going on this journey down memory lane with me. It's been about 30 minutes. My basket still looks like this, but I'm making progress. It's a journey. Let's grow together. See you next time.